"You're always the embarrassment," my family proclaimed every holiday. So when I bought my dream apartment, I hosted a huge party and sent invites to everyone but them. They discovered it on Instagram. The comments were glorious. I, 29M, had always been the family disappointment. Every holiday gathering, every birthday celebration, every milestone moment became another opportunity for them to remind me of my place in the hierarchy. My older brother was the golden child with his corporate job and perfect wife. My sister was the creative genius who could do no wrong. And then there was me, the one who took too long to finish college, who worked in tech support instead of climbing some corporate ladder, who showed up to family events in jeans while everyone else wore business casual. The breaking point came last Christmas. I had just gotten a promotion at work and was excited to share the news during dinner. But before I could even mention it, my mother started her usual routine about how I needed to get my life together. My father chimed in about responsibility and maturity. My brother made jokes about my apartment being too small for a grown man. My sister rolled her eyes when I tried to defend myself, saying I was always making excuses. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. For months, I had been saving every penny from my new position. The promotion came with a significant raise, and I had been living like a monk to build up my down payment. While my family assumed I was still struggling in my tiny studio, I had been quietly house hunting in one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the city. The apartment I found was everything I had dreamed of. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, exposed brick walls, a kitchen that belonged in a magazine, and enough space to actually entertain. The monthly payment was steep, but I could afford it comfortably with my new salary. More importantly, it represented everything my family said I would never achieve. The closing process took 6 weeks. During that time, I attended 2 family gatherings where the usual pattern repeated itself. At my cousin's engagement party, my aunt asked loudly why I was still living in that cramped place when people my age should be thinking about buying property. My mother agreed, saying she worried I would never be able to provide for a future family. My brother offered to help me look at starter apartments in cheaper areas, making sure everyone heard his generous offer. I smiled and nodded, saying I was working on it. Moving day arrived on a Saturday in early March. I hired professional movers and took the day off work to oversee everything. As I walked through my new home for the first time with my keys in hand, I felt something I had never experienced before, pure pride in what I had accomplished entirely on my own. The first few weeks were spent settling in and decorating. I bought quality furniture piece by piece, choosing everything carefully. The living room got a sectional sofa that could seat 8 people comfortably. The dining room received a table that could accommodate 10. The kitchen was stocked with everything needed to host a serious dinner party. By April, the place looked incredible. I had friends over occasionally, and they were always amazed by the transformation. My coworker mentioned that it looked like something from a home design show. My college roommate said he felt like he was visiting someone much more successful than he remembered me being. That comment sparked an idea. I started planning the party in May. Not just any party, the kind of celebration that would make a statement. I researched catering companies and settled on one that specialized in upscale events. I hired a bartender who came with premium liquor and craft cocktails. I arranged for a photographer to document everything, claiming I wanted professional shots of my new place. The guest list grew to over 40 people. College friends who had moved to different cities agreed to fly in. Coworkers from my current job and my previous company confirmed their attendance. High school friends I had reconnected with on social media marked their calendars. I invited neighbors from my new building and people I had met through various activities over the years. Notably absent from the invitation list were my parents, my brother, my sister, and any extended family members. The party was scheduled for the second Saturday in June. I spent the week before making final preparations, cleaning every surface, and arranging flowers throughout the apartment. The catering team arrived at noon to set up, transforming my home into something that looked like it belonged in a lifestyle magazine. Guests started arriving at 6. The photographer began capturing everything immediately. People walking in with amazed expressions, the beautiful spread of food, the sophisticated bar setup, the stunning city views from every window. I had briefed her to focus on the social aspects, the laughter, the celebrations, and especially the reactions people had to the space. The evening exceeded every expectation. People mingled naturally between rooms. Everyone commented on how incredible the apartment was, and the energy remained high throughout the night. My college friends marveled at how much I had changed since they knew me. My coworkers saw a different side of me entirely. New acquaintances assumed I must work in finance or law to afford such a place. Around 9, I gathered everyone in the living room and gave a brief speech about new beginnings and surrounding yourself with people who believed in you. The photographer captured the moment perfectly, me standing confidently in my beautiful home, surrounded by genuinely supportive people, looking happier than I had in years. The cleanup crew arrived at midnight, and by 1 in the morning, my apartment looked pristine again. I sat on my couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through the preview photos on the photographer's camera. They were perfect. Sunday morning, I began posting. The first photo showed the apartment's main living area with guests mingling, captioned simply with gratitude for amazing friends and new chapters. Throughout the day, I shared more images: the dining setup, people laughing on the balcony, the gorgeous kitchen filled with catered food, group shots of everyone having an incredible time. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in from people who had attended, friends who wished they could have been there, and acquaintances expressing amazement at the transformation in my life. People tagged friends to show them the pictures. Former classmates reached out to reconnect. The posts were shared multiple times. By Monday evening, the photos had reached my family's social media feeds through mutual connections. The first message came from my sister around 10 p.m. She asked why she was seeing pictures of me at some fancy party when I had never mentioned having money for anything like that. I responded that it was just a small gathering at my new place. My brother called Tuesday morning, demanding to know how I could afford to live somewhere like that, and why I had never mentioned buying property. I told him I preferred to keep my personal business private until I was settled. My mother's call came Tuesday afternoon. She was hurt and confused about why she was finding out about major life changes through social media. She wanted to know why we had not been invited to see my new home. I explained that I had wanted to get fully moved in before having family over. My father's reaction was the most direct. He texted Wednesday asking if I was dealing drugs or had gotten involved in something illegal, because my previous lifestyle did not match what he was seeing in those pictures. The comments on my posts, however, told a different story. Friends and acquaintances were celebrating my success. People were asking for apartment tours. Former colleagues wanted to know what company I was working for now. Everyone assumed I had experienced some major career breakthrough. More importantly, the people who knew my family started connecting the dots. My high school friend commented that she was so happy to see me thriving after how rough things had been growing up. My college roommate mentioned how much I deserved this after everything I had been through. A coworker who had met my family at a previous company event posted about how inspiring it was to see someone rise above negative influences. The narrative was writing itself, and it was not flattering to my family. By Thursday, my extended family had gotten involved. My aunt called my mother asking why they had not known about my success. My uncle questioned why I had been portrayed as struggling when I was obviously doing well. Cousins were reaching out directly, wanting to know about my new life and why they had been hearing different information from my parents. The family group chat, which I had muted months earlier, was apparently exploding with questions and accusations. My sister finally added me back to it Friday morning, and I scrolled through dozens of messages. They ranged from confusion to anger to demands for explanations. My mother had posted that she was hurt by my deception and did not understand why I felt the need to hide things from family. My brother questioned whether the apartment was actually mine or if I was just renting a room somewhere. My father suggested the photos were misleading and probably showed someone else's place. But the most revealing messages came when they started discussing their own behavior. My sister admitted she was embarrassed that her friends were asking why she had not known about my success. My brother complained that people at his office were questioning his claim that his younger brother was not ambitious. My mother worried about what relatives would think about their parenting. The revenge was sweeter than I had imagined. Update 1. The weekend brought unexpected developments. My neighbor from the apartment above mine reached out through Instagram after seeing my post shared by a mutual friend. She mentioned that she had been curious about who lived in the unit below hers because she often heard what sounded like a single person living very quietly. This neighbor happened to work in real estate and had been involved in several sales in our building. She offered to verify my ownership for anyone who questioned it, mentioning that she remembered the unit selling for a significant amount and that the buyer had been a young professional who worked in tech. I thanked her, but said it would not be necessary. However, Word spread quickly through my network that I had independent verification of my living situation available if needed. Sunday evening, my brother showed up at my building unannounced. The doorman called up to ask if I wanted to see him, and I considered refusing. But curiosity won, and I agreed to let him come up. His reaction to seeing the apartment in person was everything I had hoped for. He walked through each room slowly, taking in the expensive furniture, the professional kitchen setup, the stunning views. He asked how long I had been living there, how I had afforded the down payment, and why I had never mentioned any of it. I explained that I had been saving aggressively since getting promoted, that I had wanted to be completely settled before sharing the news, and that I preferred to let my actions speak rather than making announcements about plans that might not work out. He spent over an hour examining everything, clearly trying to find some evidence that the situation was not what it appeared to be. When he could not find any flaws in my story, his attitude shifted. He began talking about how proud he was of my success and how he had always known I would figure things out eventually. The conversation was surreal. This was the same person who had spent years making jokes about my living situation and career prospects. Now he was claiming credit for believing in me all along. Before leaving, he asked if I was planning to have family over anytime soon. I told him I was still settling in and was not ready for family gatherings quite yet. He accepted this, but I could see the disappointment in his expression. Update 2. The following week brought a series of olive branch attempts from my family. My mother called to invite me to Sunday dinner, mentioning that she wanted to hear all about my new situation and celebrate my success properly. My sister sent a long text apologizing for not being more supportive and asking if we could grab coffee to catch up. My father's approach was more direct. He arrived at my office on Wednesday afternoon, having somehow figured out where I worked. He wanted to take me to lunch and discuss what he called our misunderstanding about my financial situation. During lunch, he explained that the family had always been hard on me because they were trying to motivate me to reach my potential. He said they were proud of what I had accomplished and wanted to be part of my new chapter. He also mentioned that relatives were asking questions about why they had not been included in my success story. I listened politely and thanked him for lunch, but I did not commit to any family gatherings or promise to change my approach to sharing personal information. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. My cousin, who had always been neutral in family dynamics, reached out through Facebook Messenger. She had been following the social media drama and wanted to share her perspective on the situation. She revealed that my family's treatment of me had been a topic of discussion among extended relatives for years. Many of them had noticed the pattern of criticism and exclusion, but had not known how to address it without causing family conflicts. She mentioned that several cousins had been privately rooting for me to succeed specifically because of how I had been treated. More importantly, she shared that my grandmother had been asking questions about why I never seemed happy at family gatherings and had suspected that something was wrong with the family dynamic. My grandmother apparently had been considering reaching out to me directly, but had not wanted to interfere. This information changed my perspective on the situation significantly. I had assumed that my treatment was normal sibling rivalry or typical family dynamics, but learning that others had noticed and been concerned made me realize how abnormal it actually was. Update 3. 3 weeks after the party, the situation reached a tipping point. My family had been pressuring me through various channels to attend my cousin's graduation celebration. This was a big extended family event, and my absence would be noticed and questioned by relatives. I decided to attend, but with conditions. I would drive myself, stay for a limited time, and leave if the conversation became focused on my living situation or financial success. I also prepared responses for the inevitable questions about why family members had not been invited to see my new apartment. The gathering was exactly what I expected. Relatives who had previously paid little attention to me were suddenly very interested in my career and living situation. Several people mentioned seeing my social media posts and expressed amazement at my apparent transformation. But the most significant moment came when my grandmother pulled me aside for a private conversation. She told me she had been worried about me for years because I always seemed uncomfortable at family events. She said she was relieved to see me looking confident and happy in recent photos. Then she asked the question that changed everything. She wanted to know if my parents and siblings had been treating me poorly, because she had noticed patterns in how they spoke to me versus how they interacted with each other. I found myself telling her the truth about years of criticism, exclusion, and dismissive comments. She listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally and asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she was quiet for several minutes. Finally, she told me that she had suspected something was wrong, but had not realized how extensive the problem was. She apologized for not intervening sooner and said she regretted not creating more opportunities to spend time with me individually over the years. The conversation lasted over an hour, and by the end, I felt like I had gained an ally who truly understood the situation. My grandmother asked if she could visit my new apartment sometime, mentioning that she would love to see what I had accomplished and spend time together without the rest of the family present. As I was preparing to leave the graduation party, my mother approached me with what appeared to be a prepared speech about family unity and moving forward positively. She wanted to plan a family dinner at my apartment where everyone could see my new place and celebrate my success together. I thanked her for the suggestion, but explained that I was still settling in and was not ready to host family events. I mentioned that I was being selective about who I invited to my personal space until I felt more established in my new lifestyle. Her reaction was immediate and telling. She became defensive, asking what that was supposed to mean and whether I was excluding family members intentionally. When I remained calm and simply repeated that I was taking things slowly with personal invitations, she accused me of being dramatic and holding grudges. The exchange was overheard by several relatives, including my grandmother, who stepped in to suggest that everyone should respect my boundaries about my new living situation. This deflected the immediate tension, but I could see that my mother was frustrated by the lack of support from other family members. I left the party feeling vindicated in my approach, but also somewhat sad about how the family dynamics had deteriorated to this point. The revenge had been more successful than I had imagined, but it had also revealed how deep the problems in my family relationships actually were. The drive home gave me time to reflect on what I had learned about my family and myself over the past month. The experiment had shown me that my success was not the issue. Their need to maintain a specific narrative about my place in the family hierarchy was the real problem. As I walked into my beautiful apartment that evening, I realized that the revenge had been complete. My family had spent years telling me I was the embarrassment, the disappointment, the one who would never measure up. But when I succeeded on my own terms and shared that success with people who genuinely supported me, their reaction had revealed their true character to our entire extended family and social network. The comments on my social media posts continued to be overwhelmingly positive. Friends celebrated my independence and success. Acquaintances admired my apartment and lifestyle. Even strangers who saw the photos through shares and tags left encouraging messages about pursuing your dreams and surrounding yourself with positivity. But the silence from my immediate family's social media accounts spoke volumes. They had stopped commenting on my posts entirely, and their own posting frequency had decreased significantly. The contrast between my thriving online presence and their sudden social media withdrawal was noticed by mutual connections, who began reaching out to me directly instead of interacting with family posts. The revenge was complete, but more importantly, I had discovered what it felt like to be valued and celebrated by people who genuinely cared about my happiness. That realization was worth more than any satisfaction from proving my family wrong.